All right, welcome back, guys, to another episode of Middle Age Bros podcast.
Welcome back. I think this is
episode
4.
Yeah. So we're going to continue our series of styles and different vehicle types today, but I think we're just going to continue on the mini truck theme and talk more about fabrication.
Yeah, talk about fabrication, styles of fabrication too, because there's a little bit of, throughout the years there's been different styles of fabrication, I feel like. I say fabrication. Yeah, I'll say that. Yeah.
Customization and fabrication.
Right. Just a few shows, guys, I wanted to go over. In August the 9th through the 11th, the Spark Show in Sevierville, Tennessee. It's right near Pigeon Forge, so just plan a weekend of it. And it's open to anything, hot rods, motorcycles, mini trucks, imports. Really cool place to do the show at. It's a lot of fun. I've been several years. It's hot, but it's a fun show. And then the next one is going to be the Bear Drive at Habersham County Fairgrounds, August the 31st. One-day show. It's open to any and everything. Bring a stuffed bear or stuffed toy to help the Eddie Bear Foundation. Come out to that one. Again, it's open to any and everything at the Habersham Fairgrounds. So I think that's only 2 things I got coming up soon.
I think there's a local show this weekend here in Byron. It's like it says 12th annual Old Timers Cruising Club. I think it's putting on at the park.
Okay.
I think it's more of a hot rod, old school type show. Don't know a lot about it. I just saw a flyer briefly this morning through one of our group chats. But
and then next weekend is the cruise in at the Peach Outlet.
Yep.
Next Saturday.
Peach Outlet in Byron. Their monthly cruise in lasts 2-3 hours usually.
Yeah, I think it's kind of from like 4-ish to dark, basically.
Yeah.
So people filter in and out during that time, but
yeah, it's really relaxed, come and go as you want kind of thing.
So yeah, that's shows or events that's going on locally and not locally. So anything else going on with you, man?
Nah, just we've been working on the 07 Silverado, getting it finished and trying to lower it.
Slammed out.
Yeah, ran into some wheel well issues in the rear, scrubbing up on the tires pretty good, so we're gonna have to go back in and adjust that a little bit. But yeah, that 5.7, 5.8 whatever drop, this looks pretty good. I like it. Rides a lot better now that we have the notch put in there, but
right on.
Before that, it was just banging off frame and making a rough ride. Had the wife's titties bouncing like crazy, so that was kind of cool to look at. But yeah, that's about it, man. Just working and podcasting when we can.
Right on. All right. So I guess we're going to talk about mini truck fabrication. So I guess what comes to mind for me is, I think my start in mini trucking was like probably the mid 90s.
Yeah.
And so I'm a 95 I think I could drive. So I was pretty much looking at Minitruckin magazine probably before then, but I know back then I remember body drops, like hydraulics was, obviously static drops were big, back then, but I think like they were starting to put, from what I remember, I started seeing in the magazine more like hydraulics, and I started seeing body drops come about.
Yeah.
So I think, and it moved on from like kind of the rudimentary, I guess you would say, setups for the hydraulics and stuff like that. And then in the early 2000s, it kind of moved into fabrication, and under construction was like a huge thing, you know.
Oh, big time, yeah.
Saw tube work. You saw like people doing cantilevers, and stock floor body drops were starting to be a big thing, rather than like cut floor body drops. So most of the people that are going to listen to this are probably know what cut floor body drop and stock floor body drop. But a cut floor body drop, you go and you cut all around the cab, up on the firewall, down the seals of the doors, up the back wall, and you literally, the body lays over the floor. So when you get into the truck, you got a few inch step up to get in, so you lose leg room. Well, stock floor body drop, you literally cut the frame rails down, move the body mounts down, so then you keep all your headroom, and then you have to raise that transmission tunnel because that stuff stays in the same place. So when the guys were doing the body drops cut floor, it's just cutting it, laying it down, and then when the stock floor, I started seeing more stock floors, that's when people got creative. They do some cool sheet metal work on the trans tunnel, or they'd start doing sheet metal work on the back wall.
Right.
So I feel like that was kind of the two steps. And then in the early, that late 90s, early 2000s is when we started getting in the game and started doing our own fabrication and started really ramping up, doing lots of tube work. We're big with tube work, doing some different type notches and stuff like that. When we were, kind of got into that design and want that cool look factor, but also functional.
That's when it changed a lot, really, is because in the early days, and I feel like we kind of jumped time a lot here. But those early guys that were doing the mini trucks with the hydraulics and stuff like that, a lot of that was just function over
right.
looks and design.
Right.
They wanted a truck that would lift up to drive and down to park, or
right.
If they wanted to ride, however, looking all flossy or whatever. But when it really started getting more into the design and I mean, guys like engineer level guys like Max Fish and people like that who were really, breaking down how to build a chassis that doubles as an air tank with a cantilever setup, and figuring out the calculus and all the angles, right. And really, really just getting into details. So
speaking of, Max Fish actually has a book, and I have a copy of it. It's like Suspension Design. It is really very informative. If anybody's interested in it, you can look up Max Fish, and the book is it's Suspension Design, and I can't remember the publication that put it out, but just if you look up Max Fish, you can find it, I'm sure.
So I think too, a lot around that time, like you said, early 2000s is when, I think probably prime time for Minitruckin magazine. I mean, I know it's been around way before that, and a lot of people probably would think I'm crazy for that, but the truck scene was blowing up.
And also that was our, when we were in our late teens, early 20s. So that was when it was, really a big to us.
Yeah.
And so you can go back and talk to a guy that's, 55, and he would say, oh, the 80s.
Late 80s, early 90s.
But I'm with you. If you think about it, let's think about this. All the manufacturers started making mini trucks really big. And, there was some, like 60s and 70s. But really, you think about late 80s, early 90s is when those trucks were like, you think about the Mazda B2000s and Nissan hard bodies. How many of those did you see at that time?
Oh yeah, tons.
And then those were like the Hondas of mini trucks, basically. To me, I mean, and I said that last podcast too, and I just feel like, you know, S10s. I feel like S10s became that Honda Civic of the mini truck scene, but later on, when the parts were getting made more for S10s.
Well, that's part of the boom in the early 2000s was, you know, all these companies were out there selling the hell out of
Door Bros became big.
Yeah, I mean,
Can-Do became big. They were all making...
FBI was around back then.
A lot of those places were started making specific parts for these mini trucks. So you saw that just gave more of an avenue. You say, oh, hey, here's a set of control arms for an S10. Well, we got the front taken care of. You know, it's cups and drop spindles and these control arms that we got. But we may not have FBI selling a universal 4-link. Well, we can get creative on the 4-link. And that's what I like so much about mini trucking is I walk around a show, look at a rear setup on 5 different Mazdas, and none of them are going to be the same.
Right.
So I really think that early 2000s, that it really became... That's when the fabrication, the guys started getting into the fabrication of suspension and doing more of the, you know, more fabricating to the body mods. You know, you saw, which Cadillac taillights have been big for years and years.
Yeah. But
I think that, like, more people were like, oh, let's shave a body line. Or, you know, hey, let's do this antenna relocating. I mean, I know a lot of that stuff stems from 70s and 80s, but I feel like more or less the early 2000s is really when people started getting creative with doing body mods and fabrication and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that's when they started realizing that stuff all those hot rod guys were doing back in the 60s and 70s could translate into a mini truck. Yeah, and it did very well.
Very well, very well. Yeah, people were like, hey, let's, you know, somebody's Frenching in, you know, taillights and Frenching in, you know, or whatever.
Yep.
And they're like, I want to do this on a mini truck because that's the coming up and new thing, if you will. But I really, you know, like if you go back and look in Mini Truckin magazine or whatever, if you can, and you look at those, you'll see what I'm talking about of the suspension design and the tube work and the boxed, you know, frames and box tubing frames to, you know, people were doing lots the 3/4 frames. They're doing back halves, you know, showing off that big fabrication skill. And then moving on, I feel like that just kept up. But I feel like now it's more, because it started in the early 2000s. It's like, you know, Dragon was a big thing. And so you were built Dragon Destroyed, and all that was really huge.
Domination video, making it look like, you know, Hollywood. Exactly.
So I feel like a lot of stuff was like purpose built, overbuilt, you know, started, you know, like, oh, let's overbuild it, let's over engineer it, because a lot of those guys were taking it out and tearing it up every week and, you know, coming back to the garage and fixing it and going back out and doing it again. So,
well, that's kind of too when I remember starting to see, you'd see a guy with just a frame and some wheels. And it shows. And you might see that guy and that frame and wheels for the whole show season.
Yep.
And then maybe next year he's got the cab and the bed sitting on it, but not necessarily running.
Perfect example of that's not a mini truck, but No Compromise. The guy that has he's got this sweet dually. It's in negative camber out of Florida. And he had that red dually frame. I remember it come to several shows, and it'd be on like carpet. He'd have it laid out on the carpet, and now, I mean, that was probably 10 years ago or so, and now it's fully built. And I remember him showing that frame. I want to say, I remember it being at several shows. So yeah, you saw people with just the bare frame, bare metal, bare frame, like they just got done welding it up, and they'd roll it out, with some nice wheels on it or whatever, roll it out to a show to show off that fabrication.
Yep.
That's absolutely right. But then, it transitioned kind of from drag and destroy, if you will, in the early 2000s and doing all this fabrication to how low can we drive these things. Now it's, and it's still like that. Like you see people skating, they call it skating, when you're riding an inch off the ground. So now it's engineering it to drive that low, not just lift up and drive, ride real high and then drop it when you park.
Yeah.
People are actually driving these vehicles that low. So now I feel like that's kind of shifted. I mean, a lot of guys still do that crazy tube work and stuff, but I feel like it's shifted a little bit to cosmetic. I won't say cosmetically, but aesthetically eye pleasing. You got the bead rolled beds and the inner fenders that are bead rolled.
Yeah.
Firewalls. Firewalls and stuff.
Bomber seats.
Yeah, exactly. But you're seeing a lot more of the thought process going into making it, like, we got to have inner wheel tubs because we're going to be driving in the rain, inch off the ground. We got to extend the wiring for this harness because it's going to be running over the fender and tucked up so it doesn't get damaged by a wheel, So I think a lot of stuff you're seeing nowadays is more like it's purpose, just like it was before, but the crazy tube work and stuff like that is not as much seen. I won't say as much seen, but it's still a lot of guys doing it, but a lot of guys are just like, what do I need to physically make this solid suspension, solidly ride down the road, but I need to make everything clearanced and everything look nice as I'm doing it because I want to drive this. I'm building this to skate, A lot of guys back in the day were building it to drag or building it to hop or whatever. These guys are building these things to skate, inch off the ground.
Yeah, it went back to the function portion, but a more engineered and thought out function other than let me lift it and lower it.
Right.
Because it's cool.
Right.
Now it's let me look magazine quality and still be able to drive this thing an inch off the ground.
Right, exactly. And building, and I feel like people are building these, not just mini trucks, but I feel like full-size trucks and stuff too, and cars even, that people are building these things to drive more. Like, I feel like I see more people driving to shows now. I see more people driving on social media. They're like driving these things. I'm not saying they weren't driven before. I'm just saying that I feel like lots more people are getting, they may be trailering them to shows while they're building them, but once they're built, you see more of them out on the road.
Because people are trying to enjoy the investment and the time and effort as to where it used to be like, a guy would build a truck, spend, countless months, years, hours, days on the frame, on a motor, suspension, and then take it to a shop and have them put a $15,000 paint job on it. And that thing then became a trailer queen, sat behind a rock guard on a trailer and got pulled off in the field at the show and pulled right back on the trailer. The guy never got to enjoy it. So now these guys are like, I don't know, what banks they're robbing or whatever they're doing, but you got a guy who does the same exact thing as that first guy, puts that probably $25,000 paint job on it now, and says, "Fuck it, I'm gonna enjoy this damn thing," and that shit is cool.
Very cool. And that's also, that guy maybe now he's a painter.
that guy could be the same. The number one guy and number two guy could be the same, but number two is the older version who said, you know what, in my younger days, I didn't get to enjoy this truck.
Well,
now I built my another one, and I'm going to enjoy it.
Also, back in the earlier days, or the days of old, whatever they say.
In the olden days.
Yeah, in the olden days, when you were first building that truck, or the first truck you're building, also you don't have anything to spend your money on but the truck. So you're like, but the money, you're not making as much money back then either. So your dollars need to go further. Your dollars weren't as many there. So, if you scratched a $10,000, $15,000 paint job 20 years ago,
oh yeah,
that hurt the pocket a lot more than it probably does today. You go out, you spend this 20, 25 on a paint job now or something, it's still going to hurt, but you're going to be able to recover from it and get it fixed faster. I
feel like those guys that used to put that chameleon paint on a car were some of the silliest motherfuckers in the world, because back then that shit was expensive.
Oh yeah.
And a single tiny little scratch ruined it.
You
can't,
I don't know how you fade that in or
blend it or whatever they call it. I'm not a painter, but I mean, maybe it's possible. But I remember seeing a guy with one of those paint jobs on a Mustang around town, and I think he fucked up his front bumper, and he rode around with like a white bumper for God knows how long. He might still have that white bumper on, because who knows how much a fucking chameleon paint job, if it's even still a thing. I'm sure it is, but
well, that's the big draw to wraps now. You go get a wrap and somebody dings it up at Walmart. Well, guess what? You can go and pull the wrap off and rewrap your door, and it matches. You
could literally do it in the parking lot of Walmart.
You could.
I mean, if you had the shit, if you were that guy,
right? But I think that's one of the bigger draws, and it's a little cheaper, to do wraps. But wraps aren't cheap nowadays anyway.
Well, and the technology and designs of wraps now too is a lot more than just a solid color. Or they can do graphics, they can do glitters and golds and chromes and all this crap, and I know a lot of guys are going to be like, oh, it's not fucking paint. Well, I get it, it's not fucking paint,
it's not,
but at some point in life you get what you can get.
I mean, you're like, oh, I want to do a wrap and it's got graphics or whatever. That's still going to be cool, man. If I see it at a show, I'm going to be like, that's really cool. And then if I found out, this 90s, 80s, 90s looking mini truck graphics are on it, I'm going to think that's even cooler, because somebody was like, hey, I want to print graphics that look like a cool paint job. So I'm going to think that's even cooler,
Well, there's so many of them, too, that you can't tell.
Oh no!
You can't tell it's a wrap,
right? It takes a lot to tell somebody that does it and does it every day and does a good job. It's hard to tell a wrap from a paint job until you may get up on it a little closer and investigate it a little bit more. But yeah, it's really hard to tell. But
there's always going to be that group of people that hate on one aspect or the other of somebody else's vehicle, but if that guy could afford a nice wrap, or even just fuck it, I want to wrap, I would wrap my Silverado because I don't want to take it to a paint shop. That's there's no point in that for a little daily driver, but a cool wrap would be nice,
right?
But there, those guys are going to be all, especially paint guys. I think all paint guys probably hate wraps. I mean, I could be wrong, but I understand their view of it is, that's what they do, and they think paint's better. The wrap guys probably think the wrap stuff's better, So who cares, as long as whoever owns that vehicle is happy with how it came out?
It's still customizing it,
Exactly.
To me, it's still customizing it. It could be, spray painted graphics, and it's still customized. Like I know the cartoon looking.
That shit's really big right now.
Are real big right now, but it looks so cool.
It does. It does really look cool.
I'm enthralled. I see a car that has that, and I'm just like enthralled in it, because it does look cartoon. Like, it really looks cool to me. So,
there was that CRX at that little show here in town, and my daughter was just enamored with that thing. She was like, "It looks just like a cartoon." I'm like, "Yeah, that's the that's the point."
That's the point.
But it does. It looks really cool, and I know like a lot of people are doing it on, any type of vehicle. Really, I see a lot of cool videos on YouTube and Instagram where there's like guys overseas doing like, $60,000 BMWs, and it just looks fucking crazy.
Yeah, I've seen them doing, like you say, BMW, big, nice, fancy luxury cars. I've seen it on like import cars. I've seen it on mini trucks. I've seen them doing it on old, like, I think I saw somebody did one on a Impala, like a 60-something Impala.
Oh, that'd be cool.
That looked cartoonish like that. And it's really neat to me.
Another one of those things that not everybody's going to love, but
yeah, and it may, it's probably something that'll fade out in a few years or something, and
the next big thing will come.
But yeah, it still looks really cool to me, and it doesn't look. I've watched some videos on it on YouTube, and it doesn't look like I probably couldn't do it, and do it well, but it doesn't look like it's really you need a lot or it's hard to do, too hard to do.
No, I mean some paint markers, Sharpies, whatever. Like I've seen the one guy I watched do the BMW literally had one of the fattest Sharpies you'll ever see, and he's just striping lines. I didn't, he actually professionally cleared over it with like a paint gun.
Right.
But I mean, when he was done, man, just nuts how cool that looked.
Very cool.
But
anyway,
back to the topic of
back to getting off topic as we always
on
do.
topic of our mini truck fabrication early 2000s. Question: who did it first with the tube work rear suspension? Was it Driveway Works, DIB? Because I remember the Driveway Works truck being around for fucking ever. And that has been one of the baddest trucks to me in Minitruckin for so long. But you remember the magazines really, like he was even in magazines in little snippets. And I think he probably had a feature down the road at some point. I'm pretty sure he did. But the magazines blew DIB up, and those guys were the first one, and the videos.
Right.
You saw the videos.
Well, Low Life Video, I think, started blowing up DIB. I think I would have to say Driveway Works.
I think so too.
Speaking of that truck is for sale now.
You sent it to me the other day.
I would love to have that truck. And I remember, and speaking of that truck, I remember the bag brackets at the back.
The cups.
The cups had little lids over them, and the lids were shower faucet or
drain covers.
Drain covers, or the spout that comes down on you.
Yeah, that
I probably shouldn't do that, man.
Yeah, they're not seeing your hands at all.
The hand gesture, guys, that I just did.
But like you look at it and you're like, oh, that looks badass. But then you realize down the road, or you talk to them and they're like, yeah, man, it's just this, and you're like, oh, fuck,
that's so cool. Yeah, like, that was one of those things that I'll remember always.
Fabrication.
Yeah, and that's one thing I'll remember of like being different and thinking out of the box a little bit, But yeah, that truck, I just wanted to bring that up. That truck is for sale. It still looks so good.
In case anybody doesn't know the truck we're talking about.
Oh yeah, it's a Mitsu or D50. I can't remember. Extended cab, body dropped. It is
burgundy and silver, burgundy and like a darker gray. Matching suspension and frame. I mean, it's been around forever. I remember when it was in primer.
Mm-hmm. It's still a beautiful truck.
It's still awesome, and it's been painted for probably 15, 20 years.
Oh yeah,
and it's still flawless looking. But one of the baddest trucks out there for sale again.
Right, but I think that the DIB just blew the Mac, or I'll say Low Life Video, kind of just blew up DIB. They had the Mazda, which is done now. That was so badass. It's beautiful. And then the Nissan both had that same kind of tube work. They had the tube work with the bag brackets and kind of floating, if you will.
And 22s.
Yeah, both trucks had 22s.
Back when 24s were big.
Yeah, back when 22s were big on a fucking mini truck. 22s were huge. You're like, damn, how did they put 22s on that?
Yeah, how'd they squeeze that big ass wheel in there?
Yeah.
But I mean, that was also, back in the time where the scene was blowed up and you went to a big show like that, you were probably coming home with a low life video, a domination video, a drop and wear t-shirt or hat, every time you went.
Oh yeah, we could probably do a whole episode of all the video companies and
the
stuff.
T-shirt, video, apparel.
Yeah,
there's still a million of them out there, apparel companies wise, but I don't think there's as many videos anymore.
Well, no, everything's so social media and YouTube and everything now, so it's all how would you?
Dude, I remember coming home from shows and we'd wait until the entire clique could be over there, and we'd go to somebody's house and all sit there and watch the video.
And
for 2 hours.
Well, that's another, or I'll just bring this up. Speaking of that was also you go to a show, if you go to a show and you're like, man, you come home, you're pumped, you got motivation, you want to work on your shit. Well, you'd watch one of those videos and you get pumped up just like that. You go, man, I want to go out and work on my shit or cruise my shit or drag it or whatever you were doing.
Oh, yeah, they hyped you up.
Yeah, so the videos hyped you up just like the going to a show does. And I think, some of the guys that are coming up now in the scenes, if you will, they're going to miss out on a lot of that, because like you said, we'd get everybody together and watch the video all at the same time. Mm-hmm. Just like a movie night or something,
It was, yeah.
Or, we'd wait and literally wait weeks. We'd know that video was coming out soon, and we'd be like, oh, so, the new Low Life or the new Domination's coming out, and somebody would pick it up at a show or
get
it sent to them or whatever.
Yeah.
And then we'd be like, I got the new video. And then everybody would be like, all right, this Friday we're watching that or whatever.
Right.
At somebody's house, and we'd have 30 people in the house all crowded in by the TV watching that new video. So that was I missed that, but it's like you say, getting a shirt or something at a show, some of that gets, when you order it online or you get it, you miss an aspect of that excitement of it coming in the mail or you got it at a show where it's limited edition.
Well, it takes away the sentimental section of it, or I won't say sentimental, but the memory.
Right.
I could tell you, I remember this Drop 'Em Wear shirt I bought it at this show, or that KIK shirt was at that show, or whatever. It's still cool to have the shirt, or hat or videos or whatever, but it's just not the same as getting it with when you're out at a show and having a good weekend or hanging out.
Speaking of the shirt companies, you remember when I remember this and this is kind of on the topic we're on, the shows, or not the shows, the t-shirt companies had the shirts that were under construction t-shirts. Drop 'Em Wear had their own under construction one. KIK had their. I remember I had the KIK when it was gray, and I forget what it said exactly, but I remember the companies actually had under construction t-shirts. So that tells you that time was big for under construction. I don't know if there's so many t-shirt companies and companies come out with shirts all the time, so I can't keep up with that stuff now, but I don't know if there's companies that still have under construction t-shirts.
Oh, I'm sure there is. But do they still have that class at these big shows like that?
Oh yeah.
So I'm sure that somebody's at least got a t-shirt. So I'm sure Drop 'Em Wear is still probably selling the same fucking t-shirt they were selling 20 years ago.
They may, but like I said, they've got so many. I don't know what all.
God, I know. It used to be 6 shirts. They had 6 shirts.
Yeah, and they were all white, and the under construction one was gray.
Yeah,
but now they're all black.
Now they have 600 shirts, and they're all black and different colors and different size, whatever. But so.
But so. Under construction was really big. And you remember the beds, I remember seeing a lot of trucks without, like without beds, and that's an under construction thing. But to me, like a truck laid out, like you can barely see the front wheels, but then you got the big wheel in the back with no bed on it.
Yeah,
Just looks like something about that just looks very, very cool to me.
It does. I mean, I also like to see when they have barely able to see the wheel in the back too down the road.
Yeah.
But
sure.
It is cool to see half a truck that just has these huge wheels and nice suspension hanging out in the back.
Right.
I mean, at a show, you did see that a lot, and you probably still do.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But I think a thing that was like we talked about earlier was when everything kind of changed over to the more the looks and function. Was the sheet metal beds, man. There's some crazy sheet metal beds out there.
Yeah.
And far like from, jagged points surrounding tubes and suspension to just like, smooth with bead rolled and a door in the bed where you can open up and look into the suspension and work on the suspension, which is cool in its own way, but also serves the purpose of, hey, if something like you blow a bag, an airline, need to work on the rear end, you can lift that door up, but at the same time, it's just another fabricated feature of a really cool bead rolled, or not even bead, just a sheet metal bed.
Well, like you said earlier, function. Functionability is something that I'm not going to say got overlooked in years past, but is now more of a first thought than an afterthought.
Well, I remember, and it was for a long time, you saw damn near the same bed on all these trucks. They either had boxier, fender tubs in there with a boxy cover over the notch, or they were rounded.
Right.
And then, you started seeing the guys who were hinging the notch cover. So it was only a matter of time before people started really over-engineering it. And, and I want to say over-engineering because, that's probably what some people think when they that's a $1,500 truck now, but it's got, $5,000 worth of sheet metal work and time and labor in just the bed.
Right. Well, so you think about a body drop now. I mean, you have to either raise the floor or you have to, something. So you've got to do that work anyway.
Right.
And if you're bagging it, you got to cut out for the notch or whatever you're doing in the rear anyway. So it just comes natural to like, oh, let's just cut everything and let's do something really neat.
Another thing it evolved to was the guys just taking the factory floor and raising it before all the big fancy sheet metal and bead roll and stuff. So, I mean, which I think that looks great too, because it looks, I like to see a truck or a car that's, highly customized, but it has so many factory features still to it looks wise.
Yes, and that's changed for me over the years. I used to love I never wanted to have shaved door handles because I knew so many
pain in the ass
problems with those, and everybody had problems and whatever. But as far as like the shaved taillights and Cadillac taillights and shaved mirrors and all this stuff, the older I get, the more I like the factory look, the door handles, the tailgate handles. I still like a truck with some different taillights in it. Like something I saw, I can't think what it was, but it had some crazy something had some, I think it was Nissan Titan taillights in it, and I was like, that is so cool. But I still, just a truck laid out, body dropped, with all its mirrors and handles and
gas door and everything.
Yeah, all that stuff to me looks so much cleaner, maybe, I guess, as the older I've gotten.
I think it evolved too because a lot of that shit back then, shaving all. I mean, you had guys that would shave everything. Tail lights, corner lights, door handles, and pillars, and then when that shit breaks, it's kind of a pain in the ass to work on. Or you got tired of filling your gas tank up through a fucking random spot you moved the filler to or whatever.
Who was it back in the day was it Jeffro that had
yeah.
the Toyota?
Uh-huh.
He had to like, it took him like 35 minutes to pump a gallon or a full tank of gas or something.
Yeah, because they had taken the truck and they basically slapped a piece of sheet metal over top of the bed, shaved the filler, or shaved the gas door, moved the filler, and it wasn't vented properly.
I got you.
So, you had to literally sit there and it would blip, blip, and then wait, blip, blip, and wait, so poor fabrication.
Right.
But, I mean, the truck looked cool, but, servicing it was not fun because, you couldn't get into the bed at all. Like, it was welded shut.
Right.
Which is silly, but...
yeah, because I remember it had the skin on the back and everything. So, yeah, it was like, take the bed off if you need to do anything.
Pretty much, yeah.
So, and it took him so long. I remember it took him like, I want to say 30 minutes or 45 minutes to fill up his tank.
And him being a guy who didn't really work on that stuff or, know a lot about it, got rid of the truck because of that shit.
Right.
At the end of the day, that's one of the reasons he got rid of it.
Right. But yeah, I definitely like that. To me, I say cleaner look, more factory-ish look.
With that famous cup again.
That factory look now over, a lot of body mods, if you will. But now, if you keep it like I've seen, some guys have chopped the top and this and that, and it's kind of kept it factory looking, but you're looking at it, you're like, something's different. I just can't tell what.
Yeah.
Now that I like a lot too, because it's so subtle. The changes are so subtle that you're not like, oh yeah, that's a shaved door handle or something.
Right.
Like they got the flush. I think Ken Diggett makes them the flush handles.
Yeah, he does.
Door handles. Mm-hmm. So they like basically just disappear from the, and you can't even see them. They're like almost look shaved. Mm-hmm. So, but
again, hot rod styles.
Hot rod, yeah. The mini truck throughout the years is very influenced by hot rods. But
it's the granddaddy of car customizing,
It is. But it's. I mean, everything's kind of influenced it, if you will. Like you look at a lot of the like these guys that are building Toyotas and stuff. You can see a lot of the import stuff coming out, and those are drifting, or But then you're like, if you're like, oh, an S10, of course you're going to see like a lot of influence from hot rods because S10s.
S10s you can slap a Chevy V8 in pretty easily. A Toyota, they make all the car parts and the same motors are in the trucks,
right?
So they can just go to the import tuner site and get their performance parts.
Sure.
So it intermingles.
It does so much. Everything. I feel like I don't know. I mean, because I don't know a lot more about like the import stuff or whatever, but I feel like Minitruckin takes a little bit of everything. Hot rods, rat rods, if you will, whatever.
I think
imports and
there's some under construction trucks that have a real rat rod vibe to it. I think what you'll never see, and we all probably know the answer is, you'll never see a hot rod guy inspired by a mini trucker.
No,
they're not going to be out there with some wild graphics and tube suspension.
How freaking cool would that be?
It would be kind of cool.
I mean, pull up by like a Chevelle and it's got 90s mini truck paint job on it. Yeah. I think that would be pretty sweet.
Now, you see mini truckers taking those cars and putting that style on that car.
Right.
But those old dudes, they're not going to be mini trucking style with their old shit.
No. I know that. Okay.
So do we have anything else we wanted to talk about while we were on fabrication for Minitruckin? Because I think we're going to wrap up Minitruckin this episode and move on to a different style next episode.
I think that,
I think we bounced around a good bit.
We started off well, but we get off subject a lot.
Again, we go into it with the intention of talking about this, and as just in our everyday conversations, we end up in left fucking field sometimes. But
it's probably partially due to some sort of ADHD or ADD. So
yeah, the heat is driving us a little bit,
right?
Maybe, but yeah. So I think that'll wrap us up for that. And I think what we're going to do, guys, is we're going to try to appeal more. Speaking of ADHD and ADD, we're going to try to kind of fluctuate the times on our shows. We've had some people reach out and say, hey, if it was, the hour shows are great, but if I'm driving to work, it's a lot easier to listen to a 30-minute show, half there, half back, or whatever, as opposed to an hour. So, some of our episodes are going to go for an hour because we just have that much to talk about, or just get that far off subject. But we also, or if we have a guest on, for instance. But we're going to try to kind of mix and match, half hour, 40-minute shows in there with those long hour ones. So, just a heads up, if you're looking at the shows and the timing looks different, like, well, they did 1 hour this time, 30 minutes. That's why. It's just easier and quicker to listen to. And it's all about getting, more content out there. So if it's easier for us, because, we both work and, we have to fight the time of the evening to come over and record and all that. So, we're going to do what we can to bring you guys some quality stuff. Just,
bear with us.
Bear with us and keep that time.
Check out some of the shorter ones.
Yeah.
And the longer ones, Yeah,
if you got time.
Yeah, we definitely want you to listen to them all, but we think that there's a audience for both. So we want to try to kind of get you guys some good content best we can. So now we're going to kind of just wrap up this show with one of the new shameless plugs here. Yes, I want to talk about, again, like we do every time, our sticker that we have, we sell. It's me and Jason. It's my Isuzu truck and his 63 Buick on a sticker with us on it, where everything's cartooned with the MAB logo on there. I can't remember the size. I had the size written down, but they're like 6 inches by 8 inches or something. It's a big sticker. Huge. Really big sticker. We sell them for $8. We can ship them to you. Just let us know if you would like one, and we can figure out how to get it to you. Yep. And again, that money's going to the charity of choice this month, or this year, is the Humane Society of Houston County, Georgia. Yep. All goes to the Humane Society. So, yep. Well, anything else you want to wrap up with? I think that's about it. Speaking of the sticker, we also do have another smaller MAB sticker. If you see us at a show, we should have them with us. We'll just give you one. Just ask us for one, and we'll give you one. Yep. I think that's all for now. Cool. All right, guys. We'll catch you next time. All right. Y'all have a good one. See ya.